Recently, there's been a clip going around from a TED Talk that was given a while ago by one Yuval Harari. Yuval had a number of books that were bestsellers at the time. He's a homosexual Israeli atheist who wants you to know that your God, your country, and your human rights are fictional stories because he can't see, touch, smell, or hear them.
But human rights are just like heaven and like God. It's just a fictional story that we've invented and spread around. It may be a very nice story, it may be a very attractive story, we want to believe it, but it's just a story. It's not a reality. It is not a biological reality. Just as jellyfish and woodpeckers and ostriches have no rights, Homo sapiens have no rights also. Take a human, cut him open, look inside, you find their blood, and you find the heart and lungs and kidneys, but you don't find there any rights. The only place you find rights is in the fictional stories that humans have invented and spread around.
Some of you might get nostalgic and reminisce about the new atheist days of Richard Dawkins when stuff like this was popular and cutting edge, but quite frankly, this kind of argumentation isn't popular today. It's seen as unserious and sad. And so some might say, Murray, just leave this be. This is from a different day and age. Don't worry about it. But what I want everyone to understand is that this line of reasoning is the exact line of reasoning that liberalism was built upon. You see, some liberals like to claim that liberalism is simply not imposing your perfect view of the moral life on others, and that this is necessary, or else it's going to be non-stop wars between peoples. But in fact, liberalism hasn't brought peace. It saw World War II, the Cold War, the many wars in the Middle East, just to name a few. Rather, the greatest periods of peace in recent times were during the 19th century after the Napoleonic Wars and the Congress of Vienna, and this peace was largely orchestrated by men like Prince Metternich and Tsar Alexander, where the peace was largely based on age-old institutions remaining in force, like the monarchies of each nation ruling over cultural communities, along with the survival of their respective churches, like the Catholic Church, all things that Yuval will say are mere fictions. So if liberalism isn't just simply the solution to world conflict, then what is it? Liberalism is part of a philosophical system that looks at history, politics, and religion through its own lens. Now, how liberalism developed would need to be covered not just in a separate video, but a whole series. However, fundamentally, liberalism is influenced by two strains of philosophy, empiricism and idealism, both ending in roughly the same place. Yuval here falls into the empiricist camp, doubting everything that he can't detect from his senses directly, and he takes the most extreme approach. Philosophy, morality, logic, I can't touch any of those, so it must be a fictional story. Now, the other end of the spectrum is idealism, which casts doubt upon our senses because of things like illusions. But I think, therefore I am. And so, the real truth must be found through reason and in my ideas. The founders of liberalism would take ideas from both camps, sometimes exalting reason above all else, and other times taking a very strict empirical approach. This sort of schizophrenic, in-between two camps can be found most prevalently in Locke's essay concerning human understanding. But what both camps coalesce into is an overarching idea known as subjectivism. Truth is fundamentally relative, whether it be because of the untrustworthiness of our senses or of our reason. And politically, this is manifested through liberalism. My truth is different than your truth, so everyone should be allowed to do whatever they want, as long as they're not hurting anyone else. This is contrasted with the true perennial philosophy of Aristotle, St. Thomas, and the Catholic Church. Your reason and your senses are valid, and there is one truth. But the liberal takes these premises and then looks at history, of course, through that lens. For ages, humanity had been under the chains of dogmatic thought until finally the discovery of science revolutionized the world. We couldn't prove God by the scientific method, and we started actually questioning the foolish teachings of the Catholic Church, while taking some of their ideas concerning justice, law, and about human rights. And through centuries of revolutions and war, the struggle finally ended. History is now over. There are no wars, there are no kings in power, there are no state religions. We have discovered that nations and religions are fake, just stories, and that what really unites us is being human. Unless you're in the womb, of course. Now, we face the problems of being a globalized community, and we must, as a global community, fight against climate change and continue to make humanity more and more prosperous and free, while fighting off against the evil reactionaries that want to take that away from us, whether that be papists or conservatives. Does that sound simplistic? It's because it is. It's not a strawmanning of their argument. Whig history and liberal history simply is a simplified, overly simplistic view of history through those liberal premises that we started with. But here we see the sleight of hand. What I just told you is a story, it's an idea, but it's one that liberals and Yuval accept. Indeed, Yuval, like all other liberals, don't think all stories are false. They simply just decide which ones they think are true, a type of faith in the system. Because we can't have people going around with completely different ideas of morality. Heavens no, then we would have people being transphobic, homophobic, or racist, and we cannot have that. And so the liberal goes on adopting his own version of human rights, or some completely different concept, as Yuval wants to do. What about religious people? Well, they're believing a fiction. This is simply a disease of the mind, and we can't let other people hurt them by spreading this disease, so it should be suppressed. And so the liberals simply force everyone to adopt the values they want, in turn undermining the whole purpose of the subjectivism that no one can really know the whole truth. It's either that, or the liberals throw away the whole premise altogether and take their observations to their natural conclusions, communism. But maybe they're simply wrong. Maybe we can know things. Maybe we can trust both our senses and our reason. Maybe we can know that God exists, and maybe those stories of God, of those age-old institutions, of our countries, aren't so fictional after all. That's the basis of traditionalism and Christianity more broadly, and like its God, it too will rise again.